Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this series of lectures, we will be discussing about what Jenkins is and why Jenkins is used. By the time you complete this entire series, I will assure you that you will be equipped and capable enough to handle the real-time scenarios for handling the CI/CD operations using Jenkins. Okay, so let's get right into it. So first we'll be starting with what is CI/CD exactly. What is CI/CD pipelines? Why the CI/CD pipeline is used to deliver the software and reduce the time to market for those applications in real-time scenarios. So once we define what CI/CD process exactly is, then we'll be going with what is Jenkins as a tool and how and how Jenkins is used to build the effective CI/CD pipelines. That is the first part, that is the introduction part. Next, we will be going with setting up the Jenkins cluster. How? Before we set up the Jenkins cluster, we will be discussing what is the Jenkins architecture, what are the components of this Jenkins architecture. Then we'll be going with we'll be using a tool known as Packer, where we'll be creating the machine images to have a backup for the Jenkins. And then we will be using Terraform to create the infrastructure. We'll be using Terraform as the infrastructure as a code to create the cloud infrastructure on which we will be deploying the Jenkins cluster to build the CI/CD pipeline. Then we will be going with deploying high available Jenkins or multiple cloud providers like AWS, Azure, GCP, and so on. It's just on a small scenario type basis. Once we set up the entire, but mainly in this particular series of lectures, the main focus will be with AWS, but we will also try to look into a small aspects of the Azure and GCP as well. But the main focus will be with AWS. So in the next part, that is the third section, we will be dealing with the hands-on CI/CD pipelines. So in the previous section, we have created and deployed the Jenkins cluster, and in the third part, we will be handling how to create and define those CI/CD pipelines, starting with microservices. And before going to this particular section, we will be defining what is a microservice architecture, why microservice architecture is used, what are its objectives. And once we define the microservice architecture for, let's say, one of the demo applications, we will be creating a specific CI/CD pipeline for those microservices. And then we'll be running automated tests with Jenkins. It may be Maven, Gradle, and so on. And after that, we will be using Jenkins to build a Docker image within the CI/CD pipeline. Basically, what happens is that once a developer creates a code base, he will also take care of the underlying infrastructure parameters using Docker files. So once we have the entire code base with the Docker file, it's our duty to take those code base along with the Docker file. Once we try running the test pipelines, we will be creating a Docker image within the test pipeline and creating the containers out of it. And once we have the containers, we'll be deploying it to the Kubernetes clusters. And that is the next section. That is Dockerized microservices on Kubernetes cluster. And we will also check with Docker Swarm as well. So once Kubernetes is the main target environment, because most of the applications in the cloud are microservices and they are dynamic when it comes to containers. So we'll be discussing that section, and we will also be discussing with the Lambda based serverless functions. And coming to the last part, we will be discussing how to manage, scale, and monitor the Jenkins pipeline, like collecting the CD metrics, the continuous delivery metrics for the CI/CD pipeline, and also the Jenkins administration and its best practices. So as I said before, by the time we complete this video, the entire series, I assure you that you will walk away with the most valuable information to handle the CI/CD real-time scenarios. So I wish you all the best. Let's get right in.